I'm so freaking, I'm beside myself by these freaking moderators, bro. I'm so sick of it. I'm done with these freaking moderators. I was trying to listen to my podcast, and then the guys just take it down.
Seriously, man, I think you should report it to their moderators. Like, I want to get on a call with them and be like, who's moderating your moderation? Okay, who's doing that?
I know, bro. It's just insane. It's like the government should step in.
Welcome to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast with TJ and Sonny.
Hello and welcome to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast. My name is TJ McConaughey. I am loving that I get to spend a little bit of time with y'all. I am joined, as always, by my grumpy, frumpy friend. Best friend, co-host person, somebody whose success I compare myself to constantly, Sonny Saltalamacchia. Sonny, what's going on?
Yo, I don't know. I don't know if I should respond to the frumpy comment or the successful comment. I think you're trying to cover all bases there.
It's gaslighting, homie.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. Yeah, I love the podcast, DJ. We're recording on Saturday night. You hear this on Monday, but we're recording 2 days later than we normally record, and something felt wrong not recording on Thursday because you were having audio problems and stuff like that. So now we're finally at it, and we're able to record, and I'm ready to move on with the show. I'm just happy to be here, T.
We can't move on that quick. It was not me who was having the problems this week.
My bad.
I sat here like a faithful wife. Just sitting here on the other side, just watching you fail over and over and over again as you were posting to Reddit to try to get an answer for an audio problem.
We might be hitting home for too many wives who sit back and watch husbands fail over and over. Namely, our two for many years.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Now, what are you calling me frumpy for, bro? You just went on a 10-minute rant about how Reddit deleted one of your posts right before the show. So come on now. Who's grumpy? Who's grumpy?
I want to get you upset because I'm going to be
projecting your grumpiness on me. I will not have it.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about that Reddit moderators are. I'm not going to talk about that on the show. I'm not going to talk about that. However, I do want to talk some Fringe youth ministry, and so I got to tell you this, Sonny. I'm done with this chit chat. What are we talking about tonight? What are we talking about?
TJ, the same 3 topics every week. Win of the week. Win of the week. How are me and you doing in our programs? What's going good? Tales from the Fringe, my favorite section of the podcast now, where me and you just sit back and tell stories. Stories of current, stories of yesteryear. Me and you together, I think, have 30 years of experience now working with youth, which is kind of crazy. And so we just tell stories. And then the last section, TJ, is a pregunta. A question, if you will. You try to stump me, but you haven't been able to yet. So that's one of my favorite topics too. You try to come in here and steal these fancy questions from Reddit and like, this will get them. You just haven't been able to yet, bro. You haven't been able to dent the armor. So, 3 topics.
3 topics. Well, let's get into it, Sonny. Let's stop all this chatter beforehand and let's get to the show.
Woo! Show.
Join the conversation on Facebook and Instagram. And when you subscribe to this podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating. We desperately need your approval.
Win of the week. Win of the week. This is where Sonny and I compete to see who is winning harder in life. And that has actually been a pretty good competition so far, and it's pretty even. I think I'm ahead 1 win of the week. I think it's 3-2. Am I right about that, Sonny? 3-2 at this point.
Well, 3-2, but I have an asterisk because one of my wins was just epicness. So,
okay, so you keep going back to that, but again, one of my wins was epic as well. So
yeah, it was cool.
Well, and as you can see, you can hear that, we try to pretend like these wins of the week, you can win, I can win, we could all win, but we want to win. Like we really want to win.
Healthy competition,
yes,
to the extreme is good.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Men need competition. So me and Sonny are competing right now to see who's winning harder in life. So it's make it, take it. So I won last week in a landslide victory.
Okay. I told people not to vote. I told people not to vote, and 2 people still voted. If I would have said vote, I probably would have won. So technically, I won last week because I told people what to do and they listened to me. So therefore, go ahead, TJ. You won. You take it.
Yeah. You got 2 people voting, and one of those was a family member. So congratulations on those two votes.
And the other one was questionable.
Yeah. I'm sure that he didn't even watch the show. Yes, it's make it, take it. So I'm gonna start with my win of the week, and this is my win of the week, Sonny. So last weekend we did our winter camp, which is our very first time that we've done a winter camp up here in Washington. Now in Oregon we did one winter camp, and there's an epic story where I shot a dart into the skin of Sonny, but that's not what this show's about.
No, you had a kid shoot a dart into the skin of Sonny.
I had plethora of children shooting darts into Sonny's skin.
All for the Lord, baby. All for the Lord.
And it was good, but I will not tell that story because that will be another story for a different day. So we did a winter camp up here, and the first time you do anything, it's hard. It's you don't have any promo videos, you don't have any kids testimonials. It's a really hard sell to get kids there. So it is a lot of work just to get our students to winter camp. And then we got to winter camp, and it just went great. It went really, really, really incredible. And the speaker was awesome. Shout out to my boy Kyle Don. He listens to the show, and he did an amazing, fantastic job. In fact, if you need a speaker and you're in the Northwest area or you're somewhere and you want to fly a great speaker out, I would highly recommend mi amigo Kyle Don. And anyway, Kyle did great. We had our students lead worship. They did great. It was altogether a great thing, and that would have just been the win of the week. But the win of the week was this. I feel bad about this. I had to leave 24 hours before the retreat was over. I had to leave because I had to come back to the church for a really important leadership meeting. And so I had to come back, and this is the first time in my youth ministry career outside of a kid breaking an arm or something like that where I've had to leave a camp. And so there's always this question mark of how is your staff going to respond? And in organizations, the head person or the person running the thing can usually leave at any given point because there's a lot of other paid employees there. Youth workers, oftentimes our staffs are completely volunteers. So when you get a volunteer youth worker, they could be highly competent or they don't necessarily have to be highly competent. Like when I got Sonny, he was just raw. Raw.
Raw and real.
Raw and real. And so, you got to spend some time shaping these guys. So I'm just going to get to my point here. My volunteer staff handled business. They brought the camp home. Nice. They killed it. I saw all of the, posts afterwards were super positive. When they're coming home on the bus, there was good attitude and they were singing the whole way home. And it was just a really great feeling. Being able to not have to be there for the whole thing and still it's a success. And here's the big win is that when I walked away from it, I knew it was going to be okay. There was no question mark like in my head because I trust my volunteer staff that much. Big Mike was there, Mark, my other director was there, and I knew these guys were going to be able to bring this thing home no problem. And so being able to have the non-issue of I can walk away from this, these guys can take this home. I got plenty of competency here. That is awesome. And then there's another question. And this is the more difficult, more introspective question, is that when you go away on vacation in youth ministry, or you have to leave an event early, or you can't be there for something, there's always this like feeling in your heart, like, and people will tell you, they literally will tell you, guys, you're gonna go away and you're gonna find out that it can go on without you. Like you can miss youth on a weekly basis every once in a while. It can go on without you. And in my heart, whenever someone says that to me, I always ask this other question. I go, I'm sure that it can go on without me, but can I go on without it? Can I actually go on without it? And I got to tell you something, that was hard. Watching them come home on the bus and watching and hearing and just texting leaders and be like, hey, what are you guys doing now? Oh, we're playing this game. Or, oh, we just had this awesome worship experience where we wrote note cards and did this thing. And not being able to be a part of that, there's just something in your heart that just wants to be there. And for me, that's also a win. Because after 12 years of youth ministry, and I can tell you this, 12 years of full-time youth ministry, that makes me like a 230-year-old youth pastor right there. Okay?
It's like dog years times 7.
It is. The average youth worker does not last 12 years for sure. There's a lot of guys who've done it even longer than me, way longer than me. So I salute those guys too. But after 12 years, I'm still there thinking I can't get enough of this. And my heart still wants to be right there in the middle of what my students are doing. And so for me, it was affirmation, both of I can walk away and it can be okay. And I can walk away and I can be okay. And I can walk away and I can still want so badly to be there. So it was this 3-part affirmation for me that was all completely healthy and completely genuine and authentic and true. And so it just affirmed my calling in youth ministry and that God still got me right here in the middle of teenagers' lives.
That's cool, T. A lot of different angles, you could go with that. First obviously is I'm sure there's a tremendous gratitude, for the Lord for setting you up with such a good staff that can take the reins and stuff, because I think Apple is a great example. When Steve Jobs passed away, Apple hasn't been the same company since. And so many times the person running it, it's their ideas, it's their charisma, it's their enthusiasm, it's their passion for whatever context it is. And then when that person's not there, do the other people, have that to a certain degree, or have they learned and caught the vision for it and can carry it forward? But then B, being that charismatic, passionate leader, do you allow the people, that work with you to be their own passionate and energetic styles and stuff like that? Or do you force them to try to be you? And, so there's just so many moving parts to that. Another angle, TJ, is, and this is kind of, I think being in front of people is a drug. The being the front and center, no matter what context it is. If you're in a rock band and you're on the stage, if you're a national speaker, if you're a small speaker, whatever, there's something that can be very addictive, and I'm not using the word lightly. There's something very addicting about being in front and speaking, and going but simply by you raising your hands in the air, to have kids shout and raise their hands in the air, that control aspect and stuff can be very addicting, and it can be used in a very negative way if you're not careful and you don't check yourself. And sometimes I think, at least in my life, I don't know if you're like this or not, sometimes I have to purposely remove myself from that because I find myself desiring it too much or doing things just for that and stuff, And so I always have to kind of check myself and check my motivations of why I'm doing certain things and why I always want to, because I'm like you, like I'm not tired of it. I want to be in the midst. I want to be on the front lines. I just love working with youth and engaging them where they're at, and I know I'm good at it, and so I want to do it. But at the same time, sometimes what I've had to learn, because in our program we do groups every single day, and for a while I was the only guy there. I had a helper, and so she came on, so I slowly started letting her do stuff. But it was hard to step back and let somebody else come in and lead and do it. But then it was like, well, you're not doing it my way, and I would do it like this. But you have to step back and just let them kind of do it. And beautiful things have happened by letting them kind of do it in their way and stuff, And I've added on another staff, and I've kind of let her do the same thing. And so that's hard, That's hard to do. And I think anybody listening who's a youth pastor can really relate to that.
Oh yeah, and I really think you're hitting some really important things here, Sonny. Is that you have to transition from being the guy to being the guy who trains the guys. And you have to get that place because that's how leadership multiplies. Like, there's a lot of awesome youth ministers, and I was this way when I was younger. Was that you kind of just sit on there and you're the guy. So you're doing this, you're doing that. You're always you're doing all the announcements. You're doing the game. You're doing the talk. You're doing all of it. And there's something that's really great about that. But a youth group with that can't grow beyond 30 or 40.
Nope.
That model doesn't work. You have to start taking in guys and training them up and gals and just say, this is yours. This whole thing is yours. So it will go that way. And they have to take ownership of it too. And you have to be prepared for their failures. Because a lot of times they will fail and that's going to reflect on you. So you have to be able to develop them past that. And here's the harder one. You have to be prepared for their successes.
Exactly.
And that's hard because when you're watching somebody succeed at something you gave them, you have two options there: jealousy or proud papa. It doesn't.
We've seen the jealousy play out right in front of our eyes, and not a healthy way.
Oh man, and unfortunately, especially in youth minister dynamics, that plays out way too often. It literally does play off way too often. And so that's the thing is you have to, when you start giving away things, you have to be okay with people's failures and their successes, and you've got to own both of those things. You got to own both of those things. And so I feel like I've gotten to a place in my life where I'm trying to word this in the most non-pretentious way possible, but it's very easy for me nowadays to own other people's successes.
Okay. Could you sound any more egotistical?
I know. I couldn't figure out how to say it, but it's true, man. It's so true.
I think maybe a better way to say it is I am humble enough now to realize that when other people succeed, that's good. Because what
rising tides raise all boats. Right?
The Bible says if you do things for the praise of man, you've received your reward in full. Right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely true. And so, I feel successful when my volunteer workers are successful. That's what I'm trying to say there. And it's something that's really, really cool. Another example of that, just really quick, is, a guy who listens to this podcast, Jared, he saw what I was doing with the 1 minute messages. He started doing 1 minute messages, making sure he's doing one every week. I watch all of his stuff, and I've just watched him, grow. And it's really, there's a few guys out there who are mining this idea with me. Like they're jumping on board and they're taking it to different areas. And so Jared this week took it to this new app, which I didn't even know was this thing called TikTok. And I'm sure there's gonna be youth pastors who watch this and be like, TikTok, I cannot believe you're on TikTok.
TikTok's the devil.
it's literally the
TikTok
worst.
Is the new Snapchat in MySpace.
Yeah, it's basically the worst. But however, he took it there, and he had 5,000 people watch his video in under 24 hours. And so
that's legit.
So the dude, so I've had some success with it. He's had success with it. And the crazy thing is, what I felt towards that was like, man, I'm so hyped for him. Like so cool. And the cool thing is when you know that God is using you. You start something and you see that other guys are using it and winning with it. You just know that you're on the right track. And so that happened to me yesterday. That happened to me last week at winter camp. And so, like I said earlier on the show, I've become very comfortable with taking credit for other people's successes. I didn't say taking credit with other people's successes. But anyway, Sonny. I just said a lot. I'm interested, and you told me 2 days ago when we tried to do this podcast before that you had a pretty legit win of the week, and I'm hoping.
I'm even more confident now.
I'm hoping that it's better than you're on a clean office. Okay, I'm hoping it's better than that because
after hearing yours, I'm even more confident than I was before.
Oh my gosh! All right, go ahead.
So let me preface it, TJ. With this, in the midst of my week, this last week, of organizing and setting up multiple interviews with TV stations and newspaper organizations and healthcare organizations over the kids going to the Grammys, that was just, part of the week. We got some really great news. And, of course, I'm going to ham it up. But, to God be all the glory in all this. It's amazing. and I'm kind of walking around waiting for the other shoe to drop. Several months ago, there was an RFP, a request for proposal, for an organization where I'm living at up here, to offer DNA counseling inside of schools, inside of high schools and middle schools. And for many years, we have tried to really
DNA is drug and alcohol, right?
Drug and alcohol, yeah. For many years, we've really formed some healthy relationships with a lot of the schools. There's a couple of people at some of the alternative schools. I just love them to death. They're just great people. And, for the most part, it's been well received. Some schools are a little more rigid in letting outsiders come in and kind of work with their kids and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's been really well received. So we've cultivated a lot of great relationships. Anyway, we submitted this request for proposal. It was a lot of work, a lot of in your office, grinding, detailing out program specific stuff that I hate that stuff, But I spent hours and hours and hours doing all this kind of stuff, built the program up for it, designed the program for it, and did the whole cost analysis and, had a lot of help within the organization I'm with. And anyway, we submitted it and we never heard anything. So then on Thursday, I'm doing music group, and I get a text from first I get a call from my direct supervisor, and then she texts me and says, "Call me when you can." No punctuation, no nothing. She calls me and then texts me, "Call me when you can." So what do you think, right? I'm like,
that's the worst. That's the worst.
Right? So I'm thinking,
okay,
crap.
First of all, if you're a direct report, don't do that crap.
Okay? I know, right?
There's nothing that checks you more than that.
I'm just like, what? I was like, oh, crap, what did I do? So I set the kids up in the music group thing. So I went upstairs and called her. And I'm kind of like, well, great. So, in my head, I'm thinking, I haven't done anything wrong. Like, what did I do? Because I'm kind of going through my head like, things have been going great. Yeah. So I call her, and she goes, "Hey, just want to let you know, I heard from the school." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she goes, "And we got it. And we got the contract." And super cool deal. It's a good thing all around for our program and stuff. And so what it's going to look like is we'll start having meetings with the school district and about organizing. So like when a kid gets suspended or gets caught with drugs at school, what they normally do is they just suspend them, which, to me is like the worst thing to do to the kid, right? Like, why would you take the kid out, who obviously has some struggles and issues, and take him out what's probably one of the most positive environments he has in the school, right? And so we've always been a big proponent of don't kick the kid out. Like, bring us in. We can help. We can support him. We can help him kind of figure out what's going on. And so it's going to look like that. I'm envisioning is that so when a kid gets busted, he won't get kicked out. They'll call us in. We'll come in. We'll do an assessment. We'll figure out if he needs treatment or not and what type of treatment he needs. But they'll be able to stay in school, and we'll offer them individuals and do assessments and do groups inside of the school. That's and great. Partner with the school in supporting these kids. And so it's going to expand our program quite a bit. We'll probably have to hire one, if not two more counselors. And then I'll kind of be overseeing all that and just kind of massaging those relationships and stuff like that. So huge win. I mean, it's just like between that and the Grammy thing, it's like I'm just like walking around, checking around each corner, like, all right, Lord, where's the piano going to fall on my head, But super cool. And just, again, we ham it up here, but God is so faithful and so good, And for so many years, I've just consistently trusted in the Lord, trusted in the process, and just loved on kids and supported them and encouraged them. And good things are really starting to happen and stuff. And so first and foremost, praise the Lord. And second, go vote for mine.
Second, God gets all the glory. Number two, I'd like some of that glory.
Oh, man.
Sonny, I mean, I love that, dude. I just stinking love it. I mean, because you're in the schools. I mean, first of all, I mean,
that's the war zone, man.
Every youth worker wants to be in the schools. That's if you can get in there, you can do some awesome things. And so to take this thing and you said this on a past podcast, but that the model that oftentimes people use with drug and alcohol counseling is punitive punishment. Ideas like you did drugs, so you get punished, and the models are evolving constantly, but what we're understanding now is when students are doing drugs, they're medicating because of a problem, and you can't fix the outcome without going back and trying to figure out what the problem is. And so that's why you need drug and alcohol counselors. And so to kind of bypass a little bit of that system and say, nope, we got these guys on call. And and instead of you having to be processed through the system, through two systems, through the school system, and then through your PO, and then maybe you know through this, that's three systems right there. You're cutting out all of that stuff, and you're saying, let's get the help when the kids need the help. And for me, that is so huge. I mean, that is so huge. And in systems that are not very good, and this is true, systems that are not very good at helping students are oftentimes the schools. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I talk to too many principals and too many people who say, you know, the way that their system is,
they're not set up. It's not a fault of the teachers or the principals, because those are the caring people. It's just the way it's set up isn't there, and it's wrong to ask a guidance counselor who has 400 students under her watch to then deal with the kids' drug issues and mental health issues and stuff like that. So I don't know what's going on up there, but down where I live, there's already mental health counselors inside the schools, now they're starting to be drug and alcohol counselors inside the schools.
That's so awesome.
And they're contracted with the school. So it's not just like a handshake agreement. It's like a formidable contract where we'll be inside giving them the support they need, because the schools are recognizing, unless you address these other problems, a kid gives two craps about his algebra homework in third grade if he's sleeping in a car, or if his mom's beating him, or if his dad's an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's literally on the cusp of kind of changing the system and how it deals with these kids. Because you're right, TJ, drug use is always a symptom of something else, and we're too often we're punishing the system and not addressing the problem.
Yep. Absolutely,
and, man. I'm just super stoked to be a part of that. Man.
Well, and the other thing I love about this, Sonny, is you're being recognized. And I mean, I've known this for a while. I know that, but I've known this for a while because we've been friends for a while. But you should be recognized for what you're doing, and for the steadiness that you've brought to this program, and to be a guy who's in a field where I think a lot of people want to run to the adult side of things, just like in the church. A lot of people, they'll start in the youth stuff in order to parlor that into
they'll cut their teeth in the youth ministry.
And then to move on. But to you doing what I'm doing and saying, no, until God calls me onward, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to make my home in this idea of youth worker land. And so you're killing it that way. And what I also love about it is it's not just like they're contracting a drug and alcohol company through the blah 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 through their processes. I love that they're doing this with you, because they know that what you're doing is working, and what you're doing is working because I believe your heart is right in that idea of youth ministry of I don't want to just fix the outside. I want to get to the heart of the issues, and so that's good.
And the cool thing too, TJ, you know this. So much of what I do is just bringing youth ministry into a system setting. Bringing the games, bringing the icebreakers, all that kind of stuff. And therapy is therapy, relationships and all that kind of stuff. But so much of what wins is youth ministry concepts in a setting that really hasn't experienced those before.
Yep.
And kids just respond to that like nobody's business. And so for me, it just reemphasizes the importance and the need for youth workers in youth ministry type settings.
Oh man, so true. And dude, we got a question through the Facebook page. Someone sent us a message, someone who's a regular listener, and what he was asking was, I work part-time, and what's a good other job to sort of support this youth ministry dream that I have, and you think about that, man, and the idea of how many part-time guys are out there whose churches are expecting to full-time outcomes, but they're going to pay them part-time pay. And if you want to get that full-time job, you got to make that part-time moment worth it. I wonder though, and this isn't the answer I gave him, but it is a good answer, and it's this: how many guys out there are too narrowly defining youth ministry? How many guys out there are saying, I got to go get paid by a church. I got to go out there and I got to get that job at that church, or and I got to be a youth pastor. And how many guys out there would be killing it literally killing it by going to a field like yours. And I'm not, this isn't just even have to be, drug and alcohol counseling, mental health,
setting with kids,
being a counselor at school. You remember Boo Boo in Woodburn,
Yeah.
man, he was a counselor at the school,
Yes.
and
he's doing the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah, he was killing it in that setting. And so I just think that sometimes, and maybe you're out there and you're thinking, what's next? What's the next church that's going to hire me? Maybe you stop thinking like that. And I think that's one of the things that freed you up, Sonny, when you decided, hey, I'm not going to be a youth pastor. I'm gonna do something different.
Time.
Yeah.
And it was before you came on board, it was always a goal was to become a paid youth pastor. So it didn't because once you if you're designed that way, once you get a taste of that drug of youth ministry, like it's infectious. You want to do it all the time. And so I was chasing that dream for a lot of years. And then even when you came down and we were doing ministry at a high level, it was still a push pull between how much do I give Pulse and the ministry we have there versus how much do I give my work and really the ministry I was starting there. Yeah. And I just had to make a shift of I have to really pour everything into my work, but I'm still doing stuff at Pulse. And then once that ended and I was able just to fully give everything to work, things have just blossomed to a degree that I never, ever would have thought possible. Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think the encouragement to a lot of guys out there is don't chase the youth pastor job. Figure out how to make your job working with youth in whatever capacity that is, and then bring in youth ministry concepts into that.
Yep.
And the cool thing is so many times people have said, where'd you come up with that? Or how'd you get that idea? Or where'd you think of that? I'm like, well, I just got to throw it up, But it's a game we played forever at youth group or tactic, stuff like that,
Yeah.
And this isn't a knock against the systems in therapy because they do a lot of great things that youth ministry should do. It's just, it really is about not becoming so siloed, in the system world, in the world I live in, a lot of times DNA counselors don't talk to mental health counselors and they don't talk to POs, but if we all start talking to one another and really kind of sharing best practice, best ideas, what's really working, what's not working, then the kids benefit. And there are more than enough kids to go around, so it's not like we have to fight and hoard ideas, We just need to start talking and sharing and just loving on them, They deserve it. Look at the world right now, man. It's crazy to be a kid right now. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, and that's what this show is right here. You're a youth worker, I'm a youth worker, and we exist in two different contexts, but we share the same heart. We share the same heart. That's why when you talk, I don't hear I don't hear a bunch of jargon coming out of your mouth that I could never understand because your profession is so different than my profession.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Our hearts are the same, and we're doing the same job in different contexts. And you're running a department, I'm running a department. You're making hires, I'm making hires. You're doing stuff with this company, I'm doing stuff with this company, and all of it is because we have fallen in love with Jesus first. And youth work second. Well, probably our wives second, and then youth work is probably then our own kids, and then youth work. But what I believe is enjoy it because youth work has great highs and some pretty hard lows. And so
it's I've gotten into the habit every day driving home. It's all the Lord's. It's not mine, and I give the results to Him. That's the only kind of way to kind of keep myself grounded.
Yep, and you got to keep yourself grounded.
So all right. Go vote for TJ, TJ, whatever he's did. I don't even remember. Or me get inside the schools.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Tales from the Fringe is a time where we... Okay. All right.
The Fringe.
Thank you. All right. I hope that was bad, man.
we gotta get some audio. I gotta get some. I'll make a note. I'll get some audio for it.
Okay. Tales from the Fringe is where Sonny and I just tell some good old fashioned storytelling. So grab a marshmallow, go sit by a campfire, and let's.
Is that what you do when you hear a story? You grab a marshmallow.
There's not a time in my life where I think it is a bad time to grab a marshmallow. If that's what you're asking for me right now. I try to put like 4 of those suckers. I'm playing Chubby Bunnies when no one's even around, you know?
There you go.
It's like, so yeah, no judgment. Go get in your comfy place and let's listen to some stories here. Sonny, I'm going to make you go first on this segment because I went first in the last segment.
All right, TJ. So this is kind of it's a different kind of a fringe story. Years ago, I'm at the age now where I can say years ago when I'm still an adult, which is always weird. So about 15, maybe not that long, 14 years ago or something like that. I was in a band. I was in this hardcore screamo band called Sail Out PR. And, we were all believers in the band, but we didn't really classify ourselves as a Christian band. But we loved going to like bars and youth groups and just different places and playing our music. Our music was able to go into a bar. I think I've shared this on the show before. We were really anti-porn. We had a song called Bounce Your Eyes based off the concept of Every Man's Battle. To, look away when you see something that's tempting and that you might lust after and stuff like that. So we'd go into bars. We have our little pitch that we would do and stuff. And we'd go in and play youth groups. We did a tour into California once where we kind of did a mixture of both. We played coffee shops. We just played all over the place. Anyway, and a lot of the time playing in the band, it's really kind of where I found working with youth was something I wanted to do, because when we played youth groups, these kids would be super excited and we could share Jesus with them and just love on them. And so many great things happen from that. And so in the context of that, this one time we drive all the way up to Everett, Washington, which is way up, kind of close where you're at up there. And there was this bar up there we were going to play. And years earlier, it had been a really fancy bar, really kind of not really fancy, but a cool place to play, right? It was kind of renowned, and I couldn't even tell you the name of it now, but it was a really renowned place to play. So we drive all the way up there in our van, eating freaking barbecue burritos and ranch dressing and drinking Rock Stars. And we were all excited to drive all the way up there and stuff. It's always kind of fun to go to a different place. And I remember turning the corner on the street that the place was at, and I just seen all these kids lined up, like probably hundreds and hundreds of kids lined up. And I'm just like, whoa. We're all like, whoa.
We made it.
Is this,
it's finally it's happening.
Yeah, we're like, is this for us? And then we drive by, and it turns out there was like an arena there, and there was a big show that night. I forget the name of the band that was playing, but yeah, they weren't there for us. Okay. Anyway, so we drive past that, and once we realized that, we're kind of deflated. And then we pull into this bar, and we walked in, and there was a bartender and the person and the cook, and about 2 patrons in the bar, and we were supposed to play in about 45 minutes. And I'm like, oh, this is lovely. So anyway, so we do our thing. It was one of those bars where you kind of feel bad for the soles of your feet because the floor was pretty dirty, and you went in the bathroom, you didn't want to touch anything, you kind of flushed with the whole foot on the handle of the urinal thing, you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And we set up, right? And we get ready to play. And we had an opening song it was called Bounce Your Eyes, and it was a anti-pornographic song. We talked about the dangers of porn and kind of had a hardcore kind of vibe to it. And we always kind of had a little thing we said at the end of the song. But nobody knew our set list. Nobody, they hadn't heard of us, I don't think, anybody up there. And so we pray up and we start playing. So we haven't even announced the song yet. I start with the opening guitar riff, and this girl walks up to the stage. She was, obviously over 21, and she walks up. Now, TJ, there's like nobody in the bar, right? There's like nobody on the floor. Nobody's watching us. They're all just sitting. There's like 5 people in the bar at this point.
Right.
This random girl walks up to us, stands right in front of us, and we're playing. We're kind of getting into the first verse there, and lead singer screaming.
And this is the Bounce Your Eyes song? Is it what you're playing?
Yes, Bounce Your Eyes song.
Okay.
She pulls up her shirt to show us her you-know-whats. And so all of us just like turn around.
Oh my God.
Right? It was just the most weirdest thing, bro.
Oh,
the weirdest thing. And she just pulled up her shirt and just kind of held it there. So we turn around, and I'm looking at the drummer, because he's like the exact opposite of that. He's this short, fat, hairy kind of kid, and I'm just like looking at him, and he's kind of like looking up the ceiling, drumming and stuff, and we're all just kind of like huddled around him, like trying to look at this girl who's flashing us. No. And so I look at him, I go, I'm like mouthing him, like, I was like, is she done? Is she gone? And he kind of like opens one eye and looks over and goes, no, she's still there. She's still there. And then we start playing the song. And then, eventually she walks back and pulls her shirt down and walks back to her seat. And it was the weirdest thing, bro.
Oh, my
talk about like, and the only thing I can ever chalk it up to is spiritual warfare because,
oh man,
what are the? There's no way. There was just no way. This was like 2004, right? The internet wasn't as robust as it was. Social media wasn't as robust. I think we had a MySpace page, but it was before you could put your music on there, and we weren't selling CDs online anywhere. So there's no way she could have heard what we were about or knew that song.
Yeah.
And before we'd even said the words of the song, she does that. And we ended up getting paid $6 for the show. And we spent all the gas driving up there. They pay us $6 and we turned around and left right after the show was over. And I remember for the first like half hour driving back, we were like, what the heck was that all about? Like we just drove all the way up here, had this weird experience and we're driving home. And I kind of chalked it up to, sometimes when you're doing this kind of fringe stuff on the outskirts, you're going to have experiences that aren't great, that aren't Grammys or aren't getting in the schools, but it's going to test your character, it's going to test your integrity, and it's going to test how bad do you really want this. And you got to make sure you're ready to go in all situations, Oh,
for sure.
And it was just the weirdest and craziest experience, bro. I'll never ever forget it. And yeah, man, it was funny.
Well, I mean, goodness, right? You're literally singing a song about bouncing your eyes, and you literally have to turn around
and bounce our eyes.
Oh man! So you had to literally practice what you're preaching for.
Exactly,
right there,
right?
man.
Dude, it was nuts, bro.
Oh
nuts.
Man, that's crazy. And I think a lot of people can relate to the whole idea of you're doing something and you're doing it for the Lord, and you're working hard. And you have those dry moments. You just do. And maybe it's a youth event that you spent a bunch of time getting, and 4 kids showed up to it, or
right.
just the different things. It's like, God, we're doing this for you. Where are the people at?
Where's the results? Where's the fruit?
Where's the fruit? And so I think it takes a really quality person. I think it takes somebody with a lot of resolve in their own self to say, okay, what was that? Chalk it up to Satan, and let's move on. Let's move on, let's keep killing it for the Lord.
Nutty, man.
And that is a weird moment, man. Just a weird moment on the fringe of youth ministry there. Oh man. And maybe that's, I think that's one of the other people, we're talking to in this into this podcast is maybe we can start talking to some bands, some guys out there.
Talking to some bands, yeah. And oftentimes, I can't remember if that was one of the nights or not, but oftentimes we'd play a show on Saturday and I would come back and play on the worship team on Sunday morning, and so, we'd play up in Portland and all these crazy clubs and stuff like that. And I'd be out till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, kind of doing all this stuff. One time this sound lady tried to seduce me and get me to smoke weed with her in the sound room and stuff. I was like, what the heck?
At the church?
No, at this bar in Portland.
I was gonna say that's a pretty lit sound lady.
Yeah, it was a lit church, bro. And so I ran out of the sound room and stuff. And then the next morning I was playing in the worship team at 7 a.m. Just going, this is the air I breathe. And dude, just crazy, man, just crazy. But you know what, man? I wouldn't have it any other way, TJ. Like inside the church is good, man, but there's so much outside the church that needs light. It needs light.
Dude, I love that. I love that picture of you playing your metal and your dropped B tuning and your and going crazy on that stuff with your double kick drums and scream stuff. And then the next morning, this is the air I breathe in church, And you know what? I mean, so many musicians have that experience. So many musicians get their starts in churches, and they remain faithful to go into those churches and play in those songs. And even though they've evolved past it, I just love the idea that they're still serving their churches. They're still showing up and being a blessing to their churches, even though it's not their style. And man, isn't that a great picture of sacrificing for the body to be able to worship, because there's no way, as cool as the song "Bounce Your Eyes" was, there's no way that was Sunday morning ready, and still would not. There's not a church that you're going to be playing that in. So
it's a whole different type of throw your hands in the air that you don't care on Sunday morning.
Yeah. It's a little different. But yeah, I like that. I like that tale from the Fringe there, Sonny. All right. I've been going back and forth in my head about which one I want to share. So I'm going to share this one. This one's a hard one. It was my second camp ever as a youth pastor. I was 23 years old, and I started being called youth pastor when I was 22 years old. And so when I was 23, I was running my second camp ever. The camp didn't have a whole lot of traction level things. It was at a place called Camp Dakota in Oregon. Yeah, Silverton. Yeah. And we were just there, and it was really hard camp. We didn't have a cook up until the day before, and so I had to literally just like find someone in this tiny little church who said that they would do it, and they did not do it well. That threw the whole camp off, because when you don't have a good camp cook, here's a youth ministry hack for you. When you don't have a good camp cook, that will mess up a camp. Just straight up, get yourself a good camp cook.
Doesn't matter about the speaker. Doesn't matter about the events. Doesn't matter where they're sleeping.
Seriously,
they don't have food. It's over.
The food is the premier on the camps. It just is.
Shout out Julie Levin, aka Julie Powers.
Julie Powers. Anyway, so we're there, and the kids are having a hard time being there, and the camp is just not going well, and it's just. There's this sort of divide in the camp between the staff and the students. I have never experienced anything like this since then. There's just a lot of spiritual warfare going on with this stuff. And so we're winding down the camp, and it hasn't gone well. And it's campfire time, and I just sense that there's just not a whole lot of students that have great takeaways from this camp. And so, usually this is like an open mic moment, come up and share. But I just decided, if you want to stay by the campfire and talk about what God's done in this week, you can do that. But if you don't have anything to share, why don't you go ahead and just head to your tents, and it could be nighttime. And it's crazy because this camp was so hard for so many reasons. Everyone left to go to their tents, except for two students. And they were there, and it was me and two students, and I think a couple staff members, and I remember one of them got up there and he started sharing this story, and at this point we were singing a song called Abba Father, which really was hitting our kids in all the right places, especially when you're working with kids on the Fringe. They just don't have dads at home oftentimes. And so this song, Abba Father, was really healing for them. And so, the one piece that this kid was taken away from camp was this song, Abba Father. And he was taking it away because his daddy committed suicide. And so he stood up at the campfire, and he said, I need God to be my daddy. I remember, I can hear it just now, right? Some words that just echo into eternity for me. I need God to be my daddy because my daddy left me when we needed him the most. And I remember just losing it at that moment. And then the other kid stood up, and he looked over, and I knew his story too. His dad was drug addicted, basically a crackhead, and was just like the town crackhead, and he would see him every once in a while because, he'd see him outside Safeway. And I remember I was hanging out with him one point. He's like, that's my dad over there. We just walked by his dad going into Safeway. And he stood up and he looked right at his brother who just shared, and he said, you know what? I need God to be my daddy too, because my daddy left us when we needed him the most. And gosh, man, those two boys just hugged and they prayed. And I went over there and we just formed this little 3-person circle, and we just prayed for them and for God to do wondrous, marvelous, amazing things in their lives going forward. And And to this day, man, that memory stands out because it was like this little miracle that God gave me. It was like this little piece at the end of like a really tough week that, hey, I'm still moving here. I still got big stories, and I still got big testimonies that I'm going to do through your ministry. So just hang on. Just hang on. And you know, being able to watch those students grow. And here's the point, guys, is that ministering to students who are on the fringe of society, you're going to hear some pretty crazy things, and you're going to be a part of some pretty crazy moments. The point is, hang on, because God will take you to some pretty amazing moments with them. And so yeah, that was it. And I got to be a part of their story for years and years after that, and see God do some pretty cool things for their lives. So, yeah, that's my story.
And TJ, I've never heard that. This is Hell Camp, right?
Yeah, it's Hell Camp.
This is what you've referred to this camp before, and you've told me some of the stuff that happened there, and you always coined it as Hell Camp.
Yeah.
But it's cool that I never heard that aspect of the camp story before. Mm-hmm. I mean, what a testimony of, even in the midst of the worst, you know, thing you set up and the worst experience, and you know how much planning goes into camp and all that.
Oh yeah.
That still something beautiful came out of that, you know?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right. Beauty from ashes. And that's the thing, is that, you know, Satan dominated that camp. I'm going to say it just right there, but God's still in control. And he brought us through it. And then the year after that, we had one of our best camps ever. And from there on out, I haven't had a bad camp since that camp, really. But you know, God gave me a little nugget at the end, just a little thing at the end, saying, "Hey, keep going." And I honestly, you know, at the end of that camp, I was doubting my calling. I was like, "Man, this is nothing. I don't know how to do this, obviously." And when I got that moment, God kind of picked me up at the end. So there it is.
But sometimes, you know, I didn't grow up a believer. I became a believer in my 20s.
Yeah.
But prior to being a believer, and a couple times since, I used to think some people needed to get punched. Like, I just would meet these people, and you could tell they didn't have a lot of life experience, and they thought they knew everything. I'm just like, this blankety blank just needs to get freaking knocked out to realize his crap stinks, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And
his crap stinks.
And I think sometimes, in a much nicer way of putting it, it's good to kind of get your butt handed to you sometimes in ministry.
Oh yeah.
And realize that you need to stay hungry, you need to stay diligent, you need to stay in structure over convenience, and you know, you need to. You told me this after the second year of running Camp Respawn, where I kind of got my butt handed to me by my boss.
That's right.
Sometimes you can't be the cool guy.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain level, you have to be the rules guy and the structure guy and the safety guy, and let other people be the cool guy. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you need to learn that lesson the hard way, so it sticks with you. That way, every other camp or every other experience you set up for kids is going to be better because you suffered that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is when you're, gosh, who said this? I thought it was a really good thing. I think I might have heard it at the National Youth Workers Convention, or Barry might have said it to me at some point. But he said, you know, if you're a youth worker and you're over 25, you're not cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like students, like, they can't imagine a time of being 27. Let alone 34, 40, 50, you know, like, so for them, anybody over 25 is ancient. And so you're already kind of, so what they need in those moments, they need structure, they need responsibility, they need someone who's answering the call of their parents and the church leaders or the different organization leaders. And so, yeah, I remember you getting your butt handed to you at Camp 2 of Respawn, and that was hard for me to watch too, because, you know, the year before that I directed it, and, you know, you got to be the cool guy and I got to be the rules guy at that camp, and then all of a sudden, you know, you were given the responsibility of that, and you did get your butt kicked a little bit there, and then you learn like certain things that I had told you and given you over the years, you didn't know why it was important to do those things, like take their cell phones away, and so. And so you were like, yeah,
man, it's cool. Just you got your cell phones, bro.
Give them their cell phones, man. Give all these juvenile delinquents a way to contact each other at all hours of the night. But you know what? You learn, you live, you get through there, and God shows you that, hey, you can rise above those moments. So I think that's really cool. There it is, Tales from the Fringe.
You're still listening to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast.
Pregunta of the week, TJ. Pregunta of the week, a.k.a. question of the week, a.k.a. QOT dub of the week, a.k.a. go.
The question I have for us this week is, I think it's going to take us to some really cool places. It says, what is a memorable quote you'll never forget, and who did you first hear it from? What is a memorable quote that you'll never forget, and who did you first hear it from?
I'm ready to go. Can't stump me. That's a hard question, bro, because there's a lot of good quotes out there.
I know.
There's one.
I know.
There's one that I routinely come back to, based on the work that I do and the time of the age and the time that we live in, that I always come back to. So I'll use that one.
Okay.
You got yours ready to go or what?
Yeah, I've got mine ready to go. And so why don't you go first, though?
Okay. This was said by Roosevelt, and I'm not a historian buff by no means. My uncle is, and if he's listening, he's probably going to punch me in the nose. Said by Roosevelt.
Which Roosevelt?
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't tell you.
Teddy or
Theodore?
Franklin?
Well, is his name Theodore? I don't know.
Theodore or Franklin? There's two of them, bud.
Let me go to the Googles real quick.
This is awesome. You don't need to go to the Googles. Just Roosevelt
I
said
couldn't tell you, bro. Theodore. Theodore wrote it. Theodore said it.
Okay, so the first
Anyway.
Roosevelt.
Yeah. And what did he live? When did he live? Do you know when he was born? This will actually give really good context to the statement that he says.
He was the president at the turn of the century in the 1900s. Those
Yeah,
times.
right. So he was born, in the 1800s, right? And only lived.
Yeah.
Okay, born 1858.
Yeah.
Died 1919.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep that in mind. This is actually better for the context of the quote. Keep that in mind. He was born in 1858. And he died in 1919. Now I've looked for this before when he gave the quote, and I can't find it. So I've always kind of said when I talk about it with my kids, I say sometime around the turn of the century, the 19th century or 20th century. Here's the quote: "Comparison is the thief of all joy." Now think about these two things. He said this probably around 1900. And think about what was around then.
Yeah.
And think about what's around now and the impact of that quote when it comes to social media, Instagram, young, impressionable minds comparing themselves to one another. Dude, even 30-year-old minds going on Facebook looking at people in high school going, oh, man, their lives are so much better than mine, right? Think about what social media has done to the comparison aspect that we naturally do as human beings, and how many people and kids suffer from this quote. I think it's one of the most profound quotes I've ever stumbled upon.
Yeah.
Simply because the fact he said it over 100 years ago, and it has a greater impact today than when he said it 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I watch so many. I got this one kid right now, right? We're going down to the Grammys. He's going, I'm all about clout. I'm going down there to get clout. He goes, I got clout chasers trying to follow me now on Snapchat. He's all about wanting clout for this experience because he's so concerned how he's going to be perceived on Snapchat and his story, right?
Oh, yeah.
And literally, he's talked more about the clout he's going to get than the actual experience itself.
Man.
And we're all guilty of that from time to time, but I was born in '79, so I'm of that generation where I grew up without technology, but then I'm young enough to have experienced it and learned from it and stuff and know everything about it.
Yeah.
And so, they say everybody after 1995 is just thrust right in it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get in the whole technology thing, but just comparison is the thief of all joy. And man, I just find that quote so true, especially working with kids who don't have maybe a stable home life to encourage them. They haven't grown up in a home where positive reinforcement was used.
Yeah.
So they feel a little negative about themselves. They really don't know where they fit in the world. And then they hop on this thing called social media and they're comparing themselves to all their friends and yada, yada, yada. And what that does to the soul of a young person. And, it used to be, TJ, when you went to the supermarket and you stood in line for your groceries for about 30 seconds, you felt like an ugly piece of crap, right? Because you're looking at all the magazines, right?
Yeah.
Now, that never ends.
Yeah.
It's just a constant until you choose to turn it off. So, man, comparison is a thief of all joy. And I guess in the, what's it say in 10 Commandments? Do not covet your neighbor's whatever.
Wife. Yeah,
not
the whatever.
Something like that.
What was it about?
That's why I'm not a pastor. That's why I go to you.
I got you.
I got the, So, very similar, I think, to a certain degree, but, a little different. But yeah, man, comparison's the thief of all joy. It's been a quote. I teach on that routinely to the kids, and it always is a great conversation with them.
Yeah, man. And man, those studies that are coming out about how anxious our teenagers are right now, it just goes right to that quote of that they feel like scumbags because when they turn on the camera, it doesn't look like a model. And you're exactly right. Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok.
Photoshop. I mean, remember that video a couple years ago of that woman who took the picture?
Yeah,
and then they photoshopped it, like pulled her neck out and shrunk her legs and all that.
She doesn't even look like that. Like, so she sees a picture of her, and imagine that being a picture of you. Like, that's not really you.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't cause people that doesn't cause people to think, wow, look, I'm beautiful. It causes people to think, I'm glad that we have that person who can manipulate Photoshop. I mean, it really causes more anxiety. So even the people taking the photos that are that way, they all know that the true life version of them is still not as good as the projected version of themselves. And so,
it's the brand they're trying to put out, and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it might lead to some temporary happiness, but it steals joy, and joy is the thing that it's the long-standing thing.
It sustains us, man. Yeah,
totally sustains us. So yeah, I like that quote. So my quote is I learned it my first year of Bible college. My professor's name was Dr. Steve Patty, and one of his axioms for youth ministry was, what you call them with is what you call them to. And then there's a second part to that too. But I'll just start with the first part. What you call them with is what you call them to, and what you call them to that you must sustain is the second part. But I just want to focus on that first part. Be careful the tactics you employ in order to reach different students, because if those tactics aren't Jesus or aren't centered around the love of God, then you will end up attracting people to something that is off-brand from Jesus. And so, especially when we're talking about fringe youth work, and guys who are working with students who, you're constantly thinking about how to attract, how to get students to your ministry. What you call them with is what you call them to. And so know that the tactics and the methods that you employ will be the thing in which students are called to. Make sure those things have their root in Jesus. Make sure those things have their root in Jesus, because if they do not, then you will end up calling students to, skate ministry.
To yourself.
Yeah, or to something cool, but it's just off brand. It's just it's not Jesus. It's not health. It's not healing. It's not real.
Not restoration.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school. Just a quick story. We had this thing we called it the skate ministry, and the whole idea why a lot of us got a part of it is because skateboarding was huge back then, and so we got some money. We raised some money. We built a couple skateboard ramps. We got a half pipe. And it was going to be this really cool thing about like, we're going to call these kids to the skate, to our little, skate ramps. And then afterwards, we're going to share the gospel with them. And so we started, but the leader of it was kind of a young guy. I think he was just graduated from high school. And his motives were mixed. I mean, he also just wanted a skateboard ramp. I think he loved Jesus enough, but he wanted a skateboard ramp. And so it was very easy for him to cut out the Jesus element of the skate ministry and just want to go skateboard with his friends. And when that happened, you got some students there, you got some people there. However, the only sustainable thing was we're going to skateboard, and there was no Jesus, and it quickly died out because it was just skateboard ramps at that point. And so know that the things that you're employing to call your students to, be very, very, very aware that those need to look and act and sing Jesus's praise.
It's interesting because in the context that I'm doing working with kids, I can't call them to Jesus. I can't really call them to a faith. I can't, if they want to engage in that conversation, then we definitely have that conversation. And I've invited kids to church youth groups and stuff like that. And, the boss was always cool with it. So I used to always say, hey guys and girls, everybody, this is going to be a culture of respect here. Because I was afraid of using the love word because I thought that would be weird. Mm-hmm. But I noticed, and years ago I made the shift to always saying love. This is the culture of love here. Whenever we do our camps, we're going to love each other. Whenever we go on trips, we're going to love each other. I've even busted out in groups before, right? Hey, man, I don't know what you're experiencing, but when you come here, you're going to be loved. Yeah. You're going to be loved by staff, and you're going to be loved in a healthy way. And I was even weirded out saying it like to other people who worked for our company but didn't work directly with kids, mm-hmm. and how that would come across like, we just love on kids. I'm like, what do you mean you love on kids? That sounds creepy. But really, it's the only thing you should really be calling kids to. It's to be loved in a healthy and safe way, and that means keeping them accountable. It means keeping them safe, but it means also being present and supporting them through their struggles. And I agree. If your only connection with the kid is Fortnite, guess what happens when Fortnite dies? Yep. Right. If my only connection to a kid is music, when the music fades away, that kid's gonna fade away.
Music fades.
Yeah, right. I've learned. I've took a lot of L's in the context of calling kids with the wrong thing and stuff like that. Yeah. And so I've learned over the years, it's all love. And I start right off the bat with, hey man, when you come here, you're going to be loved. Mm-hmm. And a lot of kids don't know how to take that. But I find, TJ, and this is the most ironic thing about it, the harder the kid is, the almost the more gangster the kid is when he comes into our program, and I bust out the love word, the L word, the more they want to be a part of the program. It's just because so oftentimes they haven't experienced that, and they want it, and they know they need it. And so many times kids will come back after the fact of graduating our program because again, we said this numerous episodes ago, if you give them something they're not getting anywhere else, they'll recognize that, they'll see it as valuable in their life, and they'll come back.
Yeah, what you call them with is what you call them to. Make sure you're calling them Jesus. I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast. Hey, if this podcast means anything to you, let us know. Give us a review on iTunes. Hit us up on the Facebook page. Send us a direct message on Instagram. Whatever you're doing out there, help us know that it's helping you. Help us to help you. Help me help you.
Just cut out the stuff, TJ. Go to iTunes, rate us 5 stars, leave us a positive review, because right now, every review except 2 of them are basically contrived reviews from us and our fake accounts.
Okay, all right. Well, you let our little marketing thing out of the bag there. Anyway, we do actually love you guys, and I got to do some ministry online this week to speak to a youth worker who was asking some questions. So yeah, just if you got questions, if you got things that you want us to cover on the show, I would definitely love to hear about it. So just send it our way, and yeah, it's all love. What you call them with is what you call them to. We love you guys, and we want you guys out there loving your students. So
we love most of you. The randos were still fact checking.
You've earned your gold star. Thank you for listening to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast.